So, what if the room you're sitting in right now isn't actually solid until the exact moment you look at it?
Well, that's a pretty heavy thought to start with.
Right. I mean, we usually assume the universe is this uh, massive cold machine just ticking away completely independently of us. But today, we're unpacking a framework that suggests the exact opposite.
Yeah, that your literal thoughts, like your passing moods, are actively weaving the physical fabric of reality.
Exactly. Welcome to a deep dive on the eternal thread. We're looking at a really deeply contemplative piece today by Rajesh Chowdhury. It's called The Quantum Feedback Loop of Reality, How Everything Influences Everything.
It's a fascinating read, truly.
It really is. So we're going to slow down today, look past the obvious solid objects around us, and, examine the invisible spaces in between. Because this article argues that you are a participatory creator in this reality.
And that framing is just crucial, because Chowdhury is basically asking us to abandon the whole idea of the passive observer.
Right, like sitting in the audience of a theater.
Exactly. The classical view of physics treats you as someone just sitting there watching the universe perform on stage. But Chowdhury's synthesis of quantum mechanics and philosophy, it argues you aren't in the audience at all.
You're on the stage.
You are on the stage. And the mere act of your attention is, well, it's writing the script in real time.
Wow. Okay, so he starts this whole argument with a concept he calls the tangible reality that everything influences everything.
Yeah, Doctrine 1.
Right. And the common metaphor here is like dropping a pebble into a still pond, sending out these ripples that alter the entire body of water.
Or the butterfly effect from chaos theory,
Yeah.
where a microscopic shift in air pressure, like a butterfly in Brazil, compounds into a massive weather event in Texas weeks later.
We are pretty familiar with the concept of sensitive dependence on initial conditions, but okay, let's unpack this for a second. If every single person is constantly throwing pebbles like every thought, every action, every slight fluctuation in mood, aren't we just creating a chaotic, churning mess?
You'd think so, right?
Yeah, I mean, if we are all throwing pebbles into the same pond, does every single thought carry the exact same weight? How does anything coherent actually emerge from all that noise?
That is the paradox of complex systems. You would totally think trillions of overlapping ripples would just cancel each other out into white noise. But Chowdhury introduces this really important concept of the degree of influence.
Okay, degree of influence, meaning what exactly?
Meaning a passing, unfocused thought is just a microscopic pebble. It sends a ripple, yes, because it has an energetic signature in your brain, but it's easily absorbed by the larger waves of the environment.
So it barely registers.
Right. However, a sustained belief or a collective cultural movement or a highly focused intention that acts as a boulder. The coherence of the wave dictates its ability to shape the pond.
Ah, so it's not just about the sheer volume of thoughts. It's about the density and the focus behind the action.
Exactly. It isn't just mystical speculation, it's a grounded observation of how the world works at every single scale.
But even a boulder has limits, right? Like, if my focused intention is to walk through the solid wall of my house, the wall is still going to win.
The wall is definitely going to win.
Right, so the pond must have a shoreline. Or rather, this system has to have boundaries preventing just utter chaos. Where is the structural integrity of reality coming from if our thoughts are constantly bending it?
So Chowdhury addresses this through his second doctrine. He introduces what he calls the Lord Master.
The Lord Master. That sounds a bit theological.
It does, but strip away any specific theological baggage for a moment. He is talking about the immutable laws of physics, gravity, electromagnetism, the strong and weak nuclear forces.
So the fundamental rules.
Yeah, a framework of deliberate rules set by a higher intelligence or organizing principle. Think of the old philosophical tradition of deism, where a creator builds a flawless clock, winds it up, and just lets it tick.
Okay, I have to challenge that deist comparison, though. If there's already a strict code dictating gravity and physics, doesn't that imply everything's predetermined? Well, if the universe is a perfectly wound clock governed by unbreakable code, we are just gears turning exactly as we were designed to turn. Where is our influence in a system that's already built?
That is a very fair point. And the clock metaphor does break down there, which is why I think a better analogy is a physics engine in a massive open world video game.
Oh, I like that, like a digital sandbox.
Exactly. The programmers write strict, unbreakable code for the environment. Gravity pulls at a specific rate. Solid objects have collision detection so you can't walk through them. That code is the Lord Master's framework.
It's rigid.
It is rigid, And it's necessary, because without it, the game world would just collapse into unplayable static.
Mm.
But the code does not dictate the actual gameplay.
Right, the parameters are fixed, but the path the player takes through the environment is entirely open. The game only comes alive when a player logs in and starts making choices.
Precisely. The framework allows stars to form and biology to function, so we can even sit here and have this conversation. But the constant influences and choices of the player's us play out dynamically within those rules.
So the universe isn't a pre-recorded movie. It's a live, interactive simulation constrained by elegant rules.
Exactly. You're playing the game within the coded boundaries.
Which brings us to, the most difficult hurdle in this whole theory. How does the player's controller actually plug into the console?
The interface problem.
Right. How does a biological lump of tissue, the human brain, interface with the fundamental physics engine of the universe?
Chowdhury points to the quantum realm for this. He specifically argues that the mind operates as both a receiver and a transmitter in a continuous quantum feedback loop.
A receiver and a transmitter. Okay, let's break that down.
This is where we bridge biology and fundamental physics. His thesis is that the brain isn't just processing chemical reactions in a closed, isolated loop. It is actively receiving probabilistic inputs from the invisible quantum field.
And the quantum field is basically raw, unformed data, right?
Yeah, it's fuzzy, indeterminate data. The mind takes that data, processes it into communicable thoughts and emotions, and then transmits an observation back into the field as feedback.
Okay, let's ground this in the actual physics for a second, because otherwise it just sounds like mystical speculation.
It's very grounded in physics, actually.
Well, yeah, the foundation for this transmitter idea relies heavily on observer dependence, right? Which is famously demonstrated in the double-slit experiment.
One of the most mind-bending experiments in history.
For sure. So we know that when scientists fire subatomic particles like electrons at a barrier with two slits and they don't observe them, they behave as a fuzzy wave of probabilities.
They exist in superposition, meaning they literally pass through both slits at the same time and interfere with themselves.
Here's where it gets really interesting, though. So before we observe or measure a situation, it's just a cloud of what-ifs, right? And our attention is what forces the universe to make a decision.
You nailed it. The instant a measuring device is introduced to see which slit the particle actually goes through, the wave function completely collapses. It stops acting like a wave of possibilities and acts like a solid, definite particle taking a single path.
But, why? What is the actual mechanism there? Is it because measuring a tiny particle requires bouncing a photon off of it, which just physically disrupts it?
That's the materialist argument, yeah.
Or is it something deeper about consciousness itself, demanding a definite answer from the universe?
That is literally the multi-billion-dollar question in quantum mechanics. The traditional Copenhagen interpretation leans toward the idea that any measurement by a macroscopic system causes the collapse.
So just the physical equipment doing it?
Right. But theorists like John von Neumann and Eugene Wigner pushed it much further. They argued that the collapse chain only ends when the information registers in a conscious mind.
Oh, wow. So consciousness is the key.
Chowdhury aligns with this view. The quantum feedback loop implies that before your mind interacts with the data, reality is just a cloud of probabilities. Your observation collapses those possibilities into a localized physical reality.
Going back to our video game analogy, this perfectly maps onto how a rendering engine works.
Oh, absolutely it does.
To save processing power, a video game doesn't render the entire universe at once. The city behind your character doesn't exist as fully rendered 3D geometry while you're looking the other way.
It just exists as underlying code, as a set of probabilities.
Right. It only renders into solid, visible pixels the exact moment you turn your camera to look at it.
That is a stunningly accurate translation of wave function collapse. Unobserved reality is just the unrendered code. The act of observation renders the physical world for us to interact with.
So if the simple act of observation collapses these quantum waves into solid reality, what does this mean for the physical world we are touching and seeing around us right now?
It means the physical world is just quantum information leaking out and becoming definite. And it explains why reality gets so blurry when we look too closely at the building blocks.
You were talking about doctrines 4 and 5 from the article.
Yeah. Chowdhury references the Heisenberg uncertainty principle here. The closer we look at a particle's position, the less we can know about its momentum, and vice versa.
It's almost as if the universe has a fundamental resolution limit, and it refuses to let us see the underlying code clearly.
Because there is no solid code at that level. There are only statistical likelihoods. And to understand how radical this really is, Chowdhury pairs this with the Feynman path integral formulation.
Right, Richard Feynman, what did he propose?
He proposed that a quantum particle traveling from point A to point B doesn't just take one logical path. In its unobserved state, the particle takes every possible path simultaneously.
Wait, really? Every path?
Every single one. It explores the entire probability space. It goes through the wall, it goes to the Andromeda Galaxy and back, it loops around itself.
That breaks the brain a bit.
It totally does. Only when we observe the particle at point B do all those infinite probable histories collapse into the single physical path we actually record.
So the particle is literally exploring every timeline, and our measurement acts as the anchor that drags one specific timeline out of the math and into physical reality.
Exactly. We anchor the reality.
If we scale this up from subatomic particles to human biology, we start to see how this feedback loop operates in our daily lives. Like, Chowdhury highlights the placebo effect, which I think is fascinating.
Oh, it's the perfect biological proof of concept for the feedback loop.
Right, because it's entirely mainstream science, yet fundamentally bizarre when you view it through a quantum lens. A patient is given a sugar pill, completely inert, with zero chemical ability to alleviate pain.
And the only thing that changes is the information introduced to the system. The patient believes they have taken a powerful painkiller.
And their brain doesn't just, feel better. That expectation, that focused thought acting as a transmitter, it reaches into the biological machinery and triggers the physical release of endogenous opioids.
The belief literally dictates the physiological reality.
Yeah. So if we view the body as a dense collection of quantum fields, the patient's strong expectation collapses the probability wave of ongoing pain into the physical reality of healing. The thought precedes the physical manifestation.
You are seeing the mind act as an active participant in reality there, rather than just a passive victim of it.
The belief is a boulder dropped into the pond of the body's biochemistry.
Exactly. And the resulting ripples rewrite the state of the entire system.
That internal connection is just incredible. But Chowdhury zooms out to an even grander scale, bringing in quantum entanglement, which really destroys the concept that the universe is made of isolated, separate things.
Entanglement is where things get truly weird. When two particles are entangled, their quantum states are permanently linked.
No matter the distance, right?
Right. You can take one particle, leave the other here on Earth, and send the first one to the other side of the Milky Way. The instant you measure the particle on Earth collapsing its wave function to, say, spin up, the particle across the galaxy instantaneously snaps to spin down.
Instantaneously.
Yeah,
faster than the speed of light, which Einstein famously hated, calling it spooky action at a distance.
He couldn't stand it. But it has been proven true in countless laboratory experiments since then, proving a non-local, deeply connected universe.
The implication is staggering. At the foundational level, distance is just an illusion. Space is an illusion.
Which brings us to the inevitable pop culture reference in the article.
Oh, it's too perfect to ignore. Chowdhury invokes the Matrix, specifically that scene where Neo is trying to bend a spoon with his mind.
Right, and the child tells him that trying to bend the spoon is impossible. The only way to do it is to realize the truth.
There is no spoon.
There is no spoon, because the spoon is not a separate, rigid entity sitting independently in the physical world. The spoon, Neo, and the room they're in are all interconnected expressions of the same underlying quantum field.
So the illusion is separation.
Exactly. What's fascinating here is the realization that the observer is essentially observing itself. When you believe you are separate from the world, you feel powerless to change it.
But when you realize the observer and the observed are part of the exact same continuous loop, reality becomes malleable. You are not moving the spoon. You are shifting the probabilities of the shared quantum field that contains both you and the spoon.
And Chowdhury pushes this to its ultimate cosmic conclusion. He theorizes that this entire unimaginably fast quantum field might stem from a single source of universal consciousness.
Wow, going all the way back to the beginning.
Yeah, he looks at cosmic inflation, the rapid expansion of the universe, fractions of a second after the Big Bang, and suggests this expanding boundary acts as a horizon.
A horizon where the observed reality fades back into pure probability.
Exactly. It suggests the universe is literally thinking itself into existence, expanding the boundaries of the rendered video game world as consciousness reaches further out into the dark.
Okay, this is beautiful cosmology. It's breathtaking philosophy. But we've traversed from subatomic particles to the origins of the universe. How do we take this profound realization and apply it to how we live tomorrow morning?
That's the real test of any philosophy, isn't it?
Right, because I have to play the skeptic for a moment. It is very easy to take this profound physics and twist it into toxic New Age mysticism.
Oh, absolutely. The whole manifesting a sports car thing.
Yeah. People hear your thoughts shape reality and jump to the conclusion that if they just think hard enough about a Ferrari, it will magically render in their driveway. Or worse, if someone gets sick, it's because they were sending out bad quantum vibes and caused their own illness.
Which is a terrible way to view the world.
It is. So how do we apply Chowdhury's synthesis without falling into that trap?
Well, that goes back to the difference between a pebble and the ocean. We are participatory creators, yes, but we are not solitary gods.
Right, there are limits.
You are throwing pebbles into a pond, but so are 8 billion other human consciousnesses, not to mention the unfathomable momentum of the Lord Master's physical framework. You cannot override the physics engine of a moving bus by simply believing it won't hit you.
So you don't have godlike control, nor is your fate written in stone, but you have undeniable influence. You have a seat at the table.
Precisely. It is about shifting probabilities, not dictating absolutes. This theory isn't a magical cheat code for the universe. It is a profound invitation to take responsibility for the signal you are broadcasting.
So, what does this all mean for you, the listener? Realizing there is no spoon, meaning there is no true separation between us and the world, should free us from fear and perceived limitations. It means your internal state matters to the external world.
Which gives a completely different weight to concepts like mindfulness and meditation. In this framework, meditating isn't just a stress reduction technique for your personal health.
It is literally tuning your quantum receiver.
Yes. If our minds are constantly processing fuzzy probabilities into concrete reality, operating in a state of chaotic stress means we are feeding erratic, low-quality data back into the loop.
You are muddying the waters of the pond.
Exactly. But by cultivating awareness, by quieting the internal static, you refine your ability to receive clearer inputs. You become a cleaner conduit.
So the feedback you send back into the world, your actions, your empathy, your emotional baseline, it all becomes more intentional. You begin dropping deliberate, coherent stones into the water instead of just thrashing around blindly.
It really grounds the esoteric physics into a very practical daily ethics. And while science hasn't perfectly proven that consciousness literally travels through quantum fields outside the brain, Chowdhury's synthesis fits beautifully with what we do know.
Which is that the universe is deeply interconnected, probabilistic, and observer-dependent.
We are not wandering through a cold, mechanical void. We are living inside a dynamic, responsive web of information. Every choice, every shifted perspective helps to render the next frame of reality.
We are the mechanism through which the universe experiences itself. That is just a beautiful thought. We've covered immense ground today. From the ripples of the butterfly effect to the collapsing waves of the double-slit experiment.
Right up to the realization that we are conscious participants in the Lord Master's ever-unfolding creation.
The overarching takeaway is that your presence here is structurally necessary to the universe. The feedback loop requires you.
It doesn't work without the players.
Which leaves us with a final, lingering question for you to ponder in the quiet of the night. If distance is truly an illusion in quantum entanglement, and our minds are constantly feeding signals back into the universal field that connects all of us, what if a quiet, genuine feeling of gratitude you experience right now is actively shifting the probabilities of a stranger's reality across the globe?
A powerful thought to end on.
The way you observe the world might be the exact thing holding someone else's world together. If you enjoyed exploring the deep fabric of reality with us today, we invite you to subscribe to the channel for more quiet reflections and deep dives from the Eternal Thread. Keep asking questions, keep observing carefully, and have a wonderful night.